Hey, hey everyone, thanks for that. Everybody enjoying a cool drink? Put on some good weather here today. Luckily it's not tomorrow, right? We're expecting a good 40 degrees tomorrow, so even under the ground here we could end up with a few challenges with the heat. Anyway, what I wanted to do today was take you on a little bit of a journey and then ask a question, both of yourselves and of Australia in general, about where we're going. So for 2 minutes I'd like to take you on a quick journey about where things are going. If the slides will work. Love it when a plan comes together. Let's just think about what's going to be coming over the next 10 years here.
You have a clicker for me when I go? He has it. Okay, so the clicker arrived. Yeah, just making sure.
Think about how this might affect you and your families. Think about how this might affect the work you're doing. A number of people here today may have come by Uber. I know I used it last week. Taxi drivers are not too happy about it, but maybe they should learn to work together. Are we going to solve cancer, or is some artificial intelligence going to solve cancer? Planes today are already pretty much on autopilot for most of their time. What if they could do everything autopilot? What about new parts that are printed for us that are also cybernetics? What about getting the right education for our style of learning? 500 billion devices. Where are we going to go with all this information, with all these devices out there? Well, let's take a walk through what's going to happen. Let me just give you a little bit of background about why I'm here. So I've been with HP for the last 10 years, and I spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley, lived there for 16 years, went through 3 startups until I came to HP as a technologist and a bit of a futurist. And that means I get to work on a lot of different things, from what's coming up next to basically projects with customers and clients as they try and expand where they're going. But over the last 5 years, there's been a lot of conversation about what is our job and where are we going. And I wanted to ask today, as part of Convergence, where you're going and what you think your job is going to be over the next 5 to 10 years. And most importantly, how that relates to what's going on in the world around you. Because if you look at what's going on, certainly this presentation isn't going on. If you look at what's going on, the explosion in the number of people in the world, the explosion in the number of devices, the amount of data, it's changing what's going on in our lives. And we only have to look at the things like Uber and Airbnb as exemplars of the quick change that can be achieved and also impacting other industries as we go through. And if you look at over the last 15 to 20 years, we have gone from on the planet, less than 4 billion people to approaching 8 billion people, of which only 1 billion are in what's called the developed nations. That means we've got nearly 6 to 7 billion people in the developing nations. And if you look at China and look at India, both of whom have over 1.5 billion citizens, and nearly 1 billion each in developing cities, all of whom have a young generation who want new jobs and new prospects. They're all going to be going for things that we have in the developed nation today. And that means our jobs are going to change, and our experience on the world stage is going to change. If our jobs are changing, oh, great. Here we go. Thanks, man. Again, just reiterating the developing nations versus the developed nations. A huge gap there. And China and India each have more in their countries than we do in the developed nations. That's a staggering statistic. And if we move on and we think about that young generation, they want new prospects, new jobs, but we also can't discount the fact that the older folks, the aging population, also need care, they also need prospects, and the way in which we're growing and aging our lifespans are much longer than we expected 20, 30 years ago. So let me ask a question. Here in Australia, can we become a tech powerhouse on the world stage? What would it mean? It means that the government has to be involved. It means enterprise has to be involved. It means we have to be involved. So if we're moving along and we think about, well, this presentation isn't working very well at all, so I'm just going to go with it. If we think about what it means to us individually, there is a likelihood that over 80% of us here today will have a different job in the next 5 years. Is anybody expecting a different job in the next 5 years? Maybe you're planning it now, but the reality is it may be forced upon you. You may choose to do it, but you need to make decisions that are worthwhile. So as we move forward, as we try and grow on the economic curve, as we try and prepare for that, we need to think about the new technologies coming along, the jobs those technologies are going to displace, and the jobs that are going to be new or coming in as a result of that technology. So we can look at things like VR and AR and think about the experience that needs to come with that. There's a huge opportunity to become an experienced designer. There's an opportunity to be a technologist behind that and create the links such that the networks are working, that you can better collaborate with people in the field, basically become a symbiotic engagement between two people trying to solve a problem. People who've got access to the big information, people who've got on-site access, working together and seeing the same thing through virtual reality. If we think about the Internet of Things and that stat, 500 billion devices out there, who's going to manage the security for those devices? It's a bit different at scale. It's a bit different when you consider the data that needs to be protected, maybe anonymized, maybe mined. So 5 years ago, there was this concept of a data scientist. Today, that's a really popular choice for a career move. Something people wouldn't have even considered 5 years ago. So as we look at IoT, and as we look at your business, as we look at your experience and where you're going in the world, think about how your job can impact what's going on, and how what's going on is going to impact your job. So again, if we think about what's going on here in Australia and the worldwide stage, my key message after the question of whether we can become a tech powerhouse here in Australia, 20 to 25 million people against a world stage of a developing nation with 1.5 billion. How do we maximize our ability to work on that worldwide stage? We look at the scale, we look at the things that are coming along in terms of technology, nanotech, biotech, IoT, VR, AR, and we start to think about the jobs that are going to be lost and the jobs you could potentially go for. And there'll always be management, there'll always be things, but the last thing I'll leave you with is I work in a very large company. You may have heard we split recently. We're still nearly 200,000 people in our company. And it is expected that we as a company will actually get a lot smaller. And the reason for that is we are looking for the talent, looking for the skills that are in all of those areas to help build it out. But we know that we won't always be able to hire them directly into the company. We need to partner, we need to work both with individuals and small companies to drive these opportunities forward. So to become a powerhouse, ultimately we need an environment where we can work collaboratively regardless of the size of organization. And we need people who know what they're about. And my final point here is, if we want to become a global powerhouse as tech services out of Australia, we need the government to help, driving innovation, driving education, and we need companies to help, driving new experiences, understanding new roles, and working together to create new opportunities, both here as well as globally. So with that message, I ask you to consider your jobs, your companies,
where you're going and how Australia can innovate to become a tech powerhouse. Thank you.